You are listening to the Room 1202 podcast. Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to the Room 1202 podcast. This is Mar. I'm your host. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I hope you guys have been having a good week so far. So if you've been listening since the first few episodes, I just want to thank you so much for being here and walking through these crazy conversations with me. And if you're new here, I'm also glad that you found your way into this podcast. For those of you who are not familiar yet with Room 1202, this is actually a space for inner transformation. The name comes from Romans 12:2, where the Word of God tells us not to conform to the pattern of this world, but to be transformed by the renewing of our minds. And I really believe that transformation begins there. Because when our minds are renewed by the Word of God, our hearts begin to shift, our perception changes, and we begin to influence from a more genuine place. So for season 1, we are talking about formation before influence, because before anything meaningful is carried outwardly, I believe that something has to be formed inwardly first. And today's episode is called The Cost of a Scattered Mind. And honestly, I feel like this is such a timely conversation because many of us are not just tired, we are mentally scattered. We are trying to pray, work, reply, create, plan, process, heal, grow, and somehow we still manage to keep up with everyone else's life online. Guys, that is not a schedule anymore. That is a full-blown mental circus. So today, I want to talk about what happens when our minds become scattered, why it matters for our formation, and how we can begin returning to peace, truth, and God in a noisy generation. So, wherever you are right now, whether you are driving, cleaning your room, taking a walk, or just trying to have a quiet moment for yourself, I'm inviting you to just settle in. Again, I'm really glad you're here, and I hope this message meets you where you are right now. So, let's get right into it. I have been noticing how easy it is to live distracted without realizing it, guys. And most of us do not wake up and decide, okay, today I want to be overwhelmed. We just start the day like normal, right? We check one message, then one notification, then one post, then someone's update, and before we know it, our minds are already running before we have even had water. And honestly, as someone who works in social media world, guys, I feel this so much. Of course, part of my work requires me to be online. I have to look at content, study trends, manage ideas, write captions, review visuals, respond to messages, and move from one brand voice to another. Well, don't get me wrong, I love what I do, but I would be lying if I said it's always easy to stay focused. There are days when my brain feels like it has 15 tabs open. 3 of them are frozen, 1 is playing, and I do not even know where the sound is coming from. It's crazy. And I want to share with you guys, there's this concept called attention residue, which basically means that when we switch from one task or thought to another, part of our attention stays stuck on the previous thing. So even when we move on physically, our mind may still be carrying pieces of what we just read, watched, or compared ourselves to. And when I learned about that, I thought, wow, this actually explains a lot, because sometimes we are not exhausted because of one major problem. Right? Sometimes we are exhausted because our attention has been scattered in 100 small directions. You answered one message, but your mind is still thinking about the tone of the reply. You watched one reel, but now you are comparing your life to someone else's highlight. Crazy. You checked one email and your body is already carrying pressure. Or you saw someone's achievement and now your mind is quietly asking, am I that behind? And that is the cause of a scattered mind. It does not always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like being restless for no clear reason, or feeling spiritually dry because your attention has been divided for so long. And I think this matters for formation because what has our attention has access to our formation. Proverbs 4:23 says, "Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it." And what happens inside eventually flows outside. The way we think, respond, decide, build, love, and carry responsibility all comes from the inner life. So when our inner world is scattered, our outer life starts to feel scattered as well. We react faster, compare more, rush decisions, and sometimes confuse noise for direction. And that part is important because not every urgent feeling is God leading you. Sometimes it is pressure. Sometimes it's comparison. Sometimes it's overstimulation. Sometimes it's fear trying to sound productive. Romans 12:2 brings us back to the foundation of this podcast, guys. The Bible tells us not to conform to the pattern of this world, but to be transformed by the renewing of our minds. The pattern of this world is so loud. It trains us to react quickly, consume constantly, compare silently, and measure our lives by what we can see. But the Bible invites us into renewal. A renewed mind is not a mind that never gets distracted. It is a mind that learns how to return. For me, one of the most practical ways I'm learning to do is by surrendering my day to God before I let the day start pulling me everywhere. Before opening the apps, before checking messages, before letting other people's urgency become my internal atmosphere. It's all about praying something simple like, "Lord, please order my thoughts today," or "help me notice what matters. Help me not to be led by pressure, comparison, or noise, but just by Spirit." It's not fancy, it's not even complicated, but it helps me remember that my attention needs leadership. And that's so important, guys, because in a noisy world, focus is not just a productivity skill, it's also a spiritual discipline. So maybe this week we can start by noticing what scatters us. What do I keep consuming that leaves me anxious? Or what conversations do I keep replaying in my head? What kind of content makes me feel like I'm always behind? Something you need to be careful about, guys. Or even ask yourself, what do I reach for when I feel uncomfortable, tired, or unsure? That kind of awareness is not condemnation. It's actually an invitation because once we notice what is shaping us, we can begin to choose differently. We can pause before agreeing with every thought that enters our mind. 2 Corinthians 10:5 talks about taking every thought captive and making it obedient to Christ. So when a thought says, "Oh, you're behind," just like it sounds like Patrick, we can ask, is this truth or is this comparison talking? Or when a thought says, "Oh, you need to prove yourself," we can ask, is this God leading me or is it insecurity driving me? And let me just tell you this, not every thought deserves agreement. And then also, we need rhythms that help us return. Maybe it looks like reading the Bible before opening our phones, right? Maybe it looks like taking a walk without needing to listen to anything. Maybe it looks like journaling what we are actually feeling. Maybe it looks like praying before responding to something that triggered us. Sometimes, guys, healing a scattered mind is not about doing something dramatic. It's about building small, faithful rhythms that help our souls breathe again. And I have this favorite Bible verse, and it's in Philippians 4:8, and it says, "Whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things." I love that because the Bible does not only tell us what to avoid, it teaches us what to return to. And I think that is the invitation for us. Not to live afraid of the noise, but to become more intentional about what we allow to form us. Because the kind of influence that lasts does not come from a life that is constantly reacting. It comes from a life that is rooted. So maybe the question this week is not, how do I do more? Maybe the question is, What is scattering me and what is God inviting me to return to? And I have good news for you. A scattered mind can be renewed. A noisy heart can be quieted. A distracted life can become intentional again. Well, not overnight, but faithfully, one return at a time. So, if this episode resonated with you guys, you can share it with someone who might need this as well. I hope this particular episode really encouraged you and realigned you somehow to actually, refrain from distractions and become intentional again. And if you'd like to continue these conversations with me, you can follow the podcast and subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't done so. And I would love to also really hear what stayed with you and your takeaways. If you guys wanted to share that, please comment down below or reach out to my socials. I love reading those. Again, thank you so much, guys, for staying with me until the end. I'll see you again in the next episode. This is Room 1202 Podcast.